Okay. Hello, everybody. So, is Luna not with us today? So notice that she's the only one not here. Thank you for sharing that picture of the shark, Andrew. Very informative. Okay. So this is our debating course. So last time we were talking about team arguments in debating. Is that correct? Kevin, that's not helpful. So, yeah, so in our last lesson, were we talking about team arguments and the roles that each member of our team fulfills? Oh goodness, today's going to be another crazy day. So, all right, so today we are going to discuss, let me have a look at my notes. Today we're going to discuss the roles of the first proposition and opposition speaker. And we'll also start to have a look at the role of the second speaker too. So, where are we here? Okay, so we know that each team has 3 speakers. Kevin, why are you yelling? Why are you so angry? What's going on, my friend? So screamy for nothing. Goodness. Okay, so we know that each team has 3 speakers, first, second, and third, and they alternate. So proposition first, opposition second. So each team has their own advantages in a debate. So today I just want to talk to you guys about the advantage. Sorry, I'm just reading this crazy conversation going on in the chat. So today we're going to talk about the role that the first affirmative and first negative speaker fulfill for their team. And we'll also have a look at the second and third speakers too. So let's have a little walk through the order of a debate. So first of all, we have our first proposition speaker. Thank you, Stella. So, first proposition speaker. Let's have a look at what they actually do. So the first affirmative speaker, it is their responsibility to introduce the motion and it is also their job to deliver the team line. So they introduce the motion, make aware their team position. and introduce the team line. So right here, we see three actually really important jobs that the first proposition speaker has to do. So first of all, they introduce the motion. They let everybody know which side of the argument their team is on. They make everybody, so that's the first two right there. And then they introduce the team line. So what that means is they let the audience and the judges know what each argument that their team is going to present is. And the reason that they do this is to start to get the audience and the judges thinking, not about herd mentality, Kevin, my goodness. So they do this to get the team thinking, they do this to get the audience and the judges thinking about the information that they're going to hear about. So if you can keep them thinking about your team, then you have a very good chance to win. Next, they also have to actually deliver their own arguments. So which arguments in the team line has the first proposition speaker got to deliver? So those are the arguments that this first speaker will present. They'll also obviously provide evidence, like we've been talking about. And they will just try to build as strong a case as possible. And the main thing that they want to do, or what they hope to achieve through this speech, Kevin, enough. So the first thing that, so the most important thing the first proposition speaker wants to do is they want to establish credibility. So they want the audience to believe everything they say, and they want to be as persuasive as possible. So they want to establish credibility and be persuasive. Now, after the first, or actually we should go into some of the strategies first of all. So some good things or some good tactics to use for the first proposition speaker, forgetting my words there for a moment. Okay, so the first proposition speaker has the following strategies. George, enough, please. Focus. So the strategies for the first affirmative speaker. First of all, they need to anticipate counter arguments from the opposition. So if the first proposition speaker can anticipate any counter arguments from their opposition, they can enter them into the debate themselves as a strategy to try and throw the opposition off their game. Because if you prepared this great speech and then out of the blue, your opponents are already introducing your arguments and already coming up with counter arguments for them, it can be really jarring. It can really throw them off. So that is a very important strategy. It also gives you the chance to start undermining your opponents. So it gives you a chance to, again, throw them off their game and just gives you an advantage because you're telling the audience they're going to say this. And yeah. So yeah, they're going to say this. Here's the reason why that's not true. The first proposition speaker will want to use persuasive language and rhetoric techniques so they can convey their message or their arguments more effectively. So use persuasive language. I'll say use persuasive language and techniques. So there is a video that I like to show to my students. I'll send it to you guys in the chat box today. Want you to check it out. And it's got some really good persuasive techniques in it. It's all about techniques that are going to help the reader remember your point of view the best. So if you use some of these techniques, they're going to be thinking about what you've said long after you've stopped saying it. And finally, evidence. The first proposition speaker should bring lots and lots of evidence to back up all of their arguments. Okay, so these three strategies are going to help the proposition speaker make as stronger case as possible for their team. So the next question then becomes, what does, so second speaker would be the first opposition speaker. So what does the first opposition speaker have to do to pull it back for their team? So first of all, their responsibilities, the things that they have to do. They have to challenge the proposition's stance on the argument. So the first opposition speaker's first job is to challenge the proposition's stance. Start right out of the gate telling the audience and the judges why the proposition is wrong. So that's the first job they've got to do. The second thing they've got to do, and this is probably the most tricky thing that the opposition team has to do, and they have to analyze. They have to analyze the proposition's arguments. They have to, where is it here? So yeah, they have to look for flaws in their proposition's arguments, and they have to look for inconsistencies. So the reason that this job is so important is because how can you challenge your opponent's point of view if you haven't listened to what they've said and looked for anything wrong that they may have said that you can use against them in your side of the argument. So we really need to listen well when the proposition is speaking, and we need to be able to take down notes quickly, look for things that they've said that we know are wrong, and then we need to be able to prove them wrong when it's our turn to speak. And finally, the first opposition speaker has to lay out their own team line and their own arguments. So, in the 3 to 5 minutes that they're given to speak, they have a lot to do. So while the proposition is speaking, they're doing this job here. They're listening, looking for anything that they can pick on for their argument. Then when they get up to speak, they have to challenge the proposition stance, number 2. And then after they've pointed out all of the problems they've found, they then need to lay out their own team line and deliver their own arguments. So there's actually a lot to do there. So time management is really important. Does anyone have any questions up to this point before we start talking about strategies?
What is team line?
So the team line, I'll get rid of this one now, but good question. So the team line, you'll have to go back and check out that vocabulary sheet that I gave you in the first lesson. So the team line is all of the arguments that a debating team will make. So if we think of, say, 5 arguments, the arguments are, so those arguments all need to be to do with the topic. So let's just pick a topic. I'll just write topic. Got argument 1, argument 2, 3, 4, and 5. So all of these arguments need to be on the topic, obviously, but they all need to help and assist each other. So if we have speaker 1 delivering argument 1 and 2, then speaker 2 delivering arguments 3, 4, and 5, they need to be able to call back to these arguments here to assist, to help them in making their own case. So you're making your teammates' cases stronger by being able to use each other's arguments, and that is the team line. So as long as, good. So yeah, team line, it's not just the main arguments offered, but it's how you can rely on your teammates and the arguments they've made to make your case stronger. Okay, so now we're looking at first opposition speaker strategies. So the first strategy of the first opposing speaker is they need to provide strong rebuttals. So by providing strong rebuttals to any arguments made by the proposition, you're able to immediately start weakening the strength of their argument. So if you can start picking holes in what they're saying, you're already going to start planting little seeds of doubt in the audience and the judge's mind. And that can work wonders for your case. So, through providing those strong rebuttals, the first opposition speaker needs to look for any weaknesses in their opponent's arguments. Because again, how can you provide strong rebuttals if you haven't been looking for any weaknesses and things to say for those rebuttals? And finally, the first negative speaker needs to set up a strong case for their team to follow. So this comes back to the team line again. So by pre-practicing and pre-arranging your team line, if you set up a strong case for your teammates to follow, that is really going to help. That's really going to help reinforce later arguments when the debate starts getting a little bit more serious. It is, Andrew. It is. But each and every person has different strengths. So it's always important to play to your strengths, what you're good at. So if you are a really good talker and you can basically convince anybody of anything, then you're the ideal first speaker for your team, because it is your job to set the tone for the rest of your team speakers. So yeah, anyone that's like really confident, can speak really well, can craft very good arguments, it's always best for them to go first. Okay, so do we have any questions? Any questions about what we've talked about so far?
Teacher Michael,
Hello.
what is inconsistencies means?
Inconsistencies. So I'll bring up a whiteboard to draw an example here. But an inconsistency is something that just doesn't quite make sense. Or maybe if you're telling a story and you tell it slightly differently the second time to somebody else, that's an inconsistency. So, for example, let's say you've got 5 friends here, and here's you, and you tell this story to the first person, and then you tell it to the second person. It's a little bit different here. Third person, a little bit different there. Fourth person, almost the same, and fifth person over here. So the inconsistencies are these little bits that are different. They're different to what they were before. And that just looks like a completely different story. But the inconsistencies are things that they're not quite the same as they were before, or they're things that don't quite fit with a story.
And what do flaws mean?
What do flaws? So a flaw is something that's wrong. So you know those those Japanese vases that if they drop them, they don't throw them out. They just use gold to stick it back together. So a vase that had not been broken has no flaws. But once they put it back together with the gold, that gold lining would be a flaw. It's something that's wrong with the vase.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your questions, John. Luna, hello, welcome to the class.
Finally noticed me.
I had my whiteboard on. I couldn't see anybody until I turned it off, but welcome, I see you now.
I've been here since 11:07.
Oh, you have been here for a while. I've had the whiteboard on for quite a while. Okay, so what I would like to do is give you guys a topic. I'll give you 15 minutes and I want you guys to practice being the first affirmative speaker and the first negative speaker. So I'm going to give you guys perfect. We have 5 teams of 2. So I'm going to quickly team you up.
Yeah.
So let's go. Stella. Okay. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of practice at this. I'll write some notes up on the board for you guys to have a practice for you to remember how to plan your arguments. But first of all, let me just put the teams up. Okay, so check the chat box now, guys. Look for your names and see who you're going to be debating against for this activity. So the first person in every match is going to be, excuse me, is going to be the proposition. So okay, so there are the sides that you'll be on, but each match is going to be a separate debate. So you guys aren't actually on the same team, you just happen to be on the same side of this debate. Your topic will be, let me have a quick look here. Okay, so your topic is going to be is it important to eat healthy foods? So everyone that's on the proposition side, I want you to, you're all going to be the first proposition speaker in your own debates. So remember the tips and techniques that I gave you. I'll write them all down here. So first prop, first op. Okay, so let's have a remember of these rules. So what does the first proposition speaker have to do? They have to introduce the team arguments. They have to present their own argument. They have to speak clearly, confidently, and persuasively. Some good strategies. Pre-prepare. You can. So I'm going to give you guys 20 minutes to prepare your arguments. So pre-prepare counter arguments to try and weaken the opposition's case. We want to use persuasive language and techniques. And finally, you want to establish credibility and present a well thought out argument. So these are your responsibilities and your strategies for being on the proposition team. And let's have a look at the first negative team. So you want to challenge the proposition's argument. You want to listen and look for weaknesses. And you want to introduce. This gets harder and harder to write the closer I get to the bottom of the screen. So you want to introduce your team's arguments and make your own. Okay, so those are the jobs that you've got to do as the opposition. Challenge the proposition's arguments, listen and look for weaknesses, And then you've also got to introduce your own team's arguments and then make your own arguments. Which arguments from the team are you making? Those are the ones you need to present. And some good strategies for you. I want you guys to really focus on rebuttals. Because remember, challenging the proposition is your main goal as the opposition. So focus on rebuttals. I want you to identify weaknesses from the proposition. And finally, I want you to set your team up strong. To create a really strong, compelling case for your team. So you have your topic. Is it important to eat healthy foods? You know which side of the argument that you're on. And you also have here a list of responsibilities and strategies that you want to use when crafting your case. So do we have any questions before we start? Any questions at all before we begin? Terrific. I'm going to start a 20-minute class. Is going to run a bit longer today, but that's all right. So 20 minutes has started now. I want you to, you only need to present one argument of your own for this, but I want you to think of 4 arguments in total so you can set up a team line. So think of 4. Okay, so you need to think of 4 different arguments for your team, but you only have to research, write, and present one argument for your speech. Okay, I'll see you guys in 20 minutes to present your speeches. If you have any questions, please ask. I'll be here and I can still hear what you're saying. Okay, guys, so I'm just going to change the plan slightly. Instead of making the class run later and present the and presenting the arguments in class, we're going to do it in video form on the Zalo group. So I'll explain that once the time runs out. Okay. So we've only got a couple of minutes left of class. So what we're going to do for the homework, I want you guys to record yourselves. So this is to the proposition first. I want you to record yourselves speaking your argument. And remember who I paired you up with, because anytime you reference your opposition in the video, I want you to reference the person who I've paired you up against. So anyone that's on the opposition point of view, so anyone that's on the opposition team, you need to make sure that you wait until your opponent from the proposition has sent their video in. And then I want you to watch that video, come up with your counter arguments, look for things to rebut, and then I want you to make your video. That is actually not a bad idea. So I'll leave it up to everybody tonight. Message in Zalo after the class if you are interested and available in holding a little practice debate tonight. We can do it on Zalo or come back on Zoom, one of the two. But either way, actually no, stick to doing the videos in the Zalo group, because I want us to go through all of them together on Thursday, and I'll give you guys feedback and we can evaluate what we did good and what we think we can do better. So stick to the homework. Proposition, make your videos first, send them in to the Zalo group. And as soon as your opposition, as soon as you've sent that in, I want your opposition opponents to look for your video, watch it, come up with your rebuttals, and then make a video in reply. So we'll watch that all together on Thursday, and I'll give feedback and we can all talk about what we saw. So good job today, guys. I hope you did. I hope you got a lot of your arguments written today. And I finally figured out what was going on with that debating score sheet. So I'm going to send that to the Zalo group too. And I'll give you guys until next Tuesday to do that homework. So you'll have a week to finish that. It's not much. Just watch and judge a few debates and score the speakers. But I'll put that in the Zalo group. So good work, guys. I'll see you on Thursday, where we'll talk about your videos. So make them as convincing and as good as possible. I can't wait to see them all.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good work today. Bye.
Teacher.
Bye.
Goodbye, teacher.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, video.
Have a good lunch.
Yeah, enjoy your lunch, everybody.